Hello there.
The cinema courtroom is now in session.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, welcome back to your one and only Cinema Courtroom Show, a podcast where your favorite blockbusters await trial with your host and galactic judge, Makram Mark. Do not forget to like and subscribe on whatever streaming platform that you're accessing this podcast on, whether it be Spotify or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel. Because every click on the icon counts. Don't forget to ring the notification bell and share this podcast with your friends, family, cat, dog, pigeon, whomever. Now, without further ado, let us begin with our review topic, Inglorious Basterds, directed by Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino likes to direct his films in a method that is unpredictable to the audience and build on the suspense in each scene through engaging exposition. Inglorious Basterds, I have to say, is one of these films. It has a star-studded cast. We get to see Brad Pitt, Michael Fassbender, and other famous names. Set in Nazi-occupied France, Inglorious Basterds is comprised of two fundamental plots: to assassinate a group of Nazi Germans, including Adolf Hitler. And there is this Jewish woman. Her name is Emmanuelle. It's a French name. And she owns a cinema. Frederick Zoller, who is a German sniper and has killed a total of 240 people, and makes a Nazi propaganda movie based on those very killing streaks. Frederick tries to get Emmanuelle to premiere the movie in her cinema venue. And this is where the plot gets really engaging. In the opening of the movie, Chapter 1, there is this guy, Hans Landa, who goes by the alias The Jew Hunter. And he forces a farmer to give up the Jewish family that he was harboring in exchange to no longer being harassed by the German secret police. Basically, Emmanuelle is the only girl from that Jewish family who had managed to escape. And years later, she is running a cinema that her aunt and uncle previously owned. The quote-quote Jew hunter reappears and also takes a keen interest in utilizing her cinema venue to host Frederick's film. This expands the plot even further. Something that stood out about the plot of Inglorious Basterds is that it sets things up with a slow burn, and while we don't know what this character is planning, we have details of the logistics, the methods, the execution given right to us. Meanwhile, it connects to the Bastards plotline, a group of Jewish American soldiers who hunt and kill Nazis in Tarantino fashion. The thing about Inglorious Basterds that we must acknowledge is that it is a cocktail of a movie, and we hear a narrator only once in a movie at an unexpected time. And let me tell you what, the narrator didn't even show once. We've never heard him. So I didn't even know there was supposed to be a narrator at any scene in a movie. But the narrator just spoke out of nowhere. I don't know if this was like an artistic style of, implementing the narration audio. But where the narration explains how the film reels in the cinema are flammable and the physics behind that, it kind of blends in with the climax. And it makes you go, okay, that makes sense. You can see a bit of the piece of the puzzle. Therefore, I do believe that this narration from the narrator serves as a setting point for Emmanuel, the bastards, and British attackers to burn the Nazi people alive at the cinema premiere. Again, this happens in the third act, the climatic act of the Inglorious Basterds film. Now, the plot, for the most part, is solid, even though it can be at times, in my opinion, ridiculous. For instance, why wasn't Adolf Hitler properly guarded by the other Nazi people when he was getting fired at by the machine gun? He literally entered the cinema without an escort or guard in sight. You can't tell me there's been no plot armor involved in getting him into that theater. It would have been so easy for one of the shooters from the Bastards group who haven't been captured yet to shoot him on sight immediately while the other Nazis are distracted by the movie. Now you might be telling me, hold up, the goal wasn't only to kill Adolf Hitler, it was to kill all the other Nazis. But I beg to differ. I think if the goal was collapsing the Nazi party, killing Adolf Hitler was the only way to do it, and possibly to end World War II. So all we needed to do was shoot Adolf Hitler, and then boom, movie over. Again, I still think the plot for this movie is solid, and for what this plot hole is worth, it sets up a well executed climax at the end. And to me, the climax where the cinema gets burnt and Emmanuel's on the screen, finally enacting her revenge and calling it Jewish vengeance, is what I think to be a metaphor of how modern Germany is trying to burn away its dark and messed up past. Sure, it doesn't necessarily encourage a sound theme. After all, the bastards literally disobeyed their country's orders to set this whole thing up. And there is no denying that there were innocent women affected by the assassination, and that one other innocent person who was riding a bike did also get killed after the cinema had burnt down. So I'm guessing that Quentin Tarantino wanted to emphasize the casualties of assassination, which adds to how caliber his directing and visual style is, which expands on the argument that his directing style is good, as well as visual intrigue. Quentin Tarantino nails it on the directing and visual styles. End of story. Inglorious Basterds nails it. Let's also talk about the dialogue in this movie. The dialogue throughout the Inglorious Basterds movie is unpredictable. Each word is a slow build-up to the showdown that it's about to culminate to. Quentin Tarantino has an interesting habit of trying to get the audience to guess or second guess what the characters are talking about in his movies. And there is a 9 out of 10 chance that it's going to end with something horrifying or a shocking revelation. To finish off my Inglorious Basterds review, I think that the editing is filled with riveting emotion. There is a scene where Landau walks into the restaurant, but the interesting thing is that the camera is focused on Emmanuel's face. The cinematography of this movie is very exceptional, and the color palettes, especially the scarlet red one, aligned with the red tone of the movie, the blood, was exceptional. Overall, I think that Inglorious Basterds is a movie that I will strongly recommend if you're into Quentin Tarantino's work, and enjoy also watching people's heads get peeled off and other brutal stuff. If you're into that, then I believe Inglorious Basterds is the movie for you. Inglorious Basterds is definitely up there in his portfolio of exceptional movies, Quentin Tarantino. Inglorious Basterds is a film that I believe pays tribute to intelligent and colorful screenplays in Hollywood, and we got Quentin Tarantino to thank for that. And now we begin to approach the post-sentencing hearing. What is the post-sentencing hearing, you may ask? Well, I'm glad you inquired about this. In the first half of the Cinema Courtroom, we review one of the films that I have selected, old and new, big and small, underrated and overrated, the broken and the damned, black, white, brown, orange, and blue. Then, in the second half of the recording, I assemble all of the leftover topics that you may be interested in, which pertain to the film industry in general, and I integrate it into one post-sentencing hearing list. Think of it as an after party that is long overdue, where you are invited, or in judiciary terms, an invitation to a retrial for the purpose of rectifying an unfair hearing. Because sometimes, like the organic sapien that I am, I find that I've been too critically generous or harsh about a movie. So, the majority of the time, my opinions do change after a rewatch or two, which means I am compelled to review it again here on the post-sentencing hearing. If you listen this far into the podcast, then I salute you for not only listening to the first half of the Cinema Courtroom show, but you're also sticking around for the second half of the show. If you enjoy what you're hearing and what I have to say, if you haven't done so already, I would very much appreciate it if you just give this podcast a reshare and like this episode by clicking the thumbs up or heart icon on whatever platform that you're listening on. In the case of Spotify, just give it how many stars you'd like from 1 to 5, or the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel. This way, you will be supporting the Cinema Courtroom as well as its future episodes, installments, and assets. It's also going to give me more of an incentive to keep uploading weekly. That being said, I salute you in advance for your generous engagement and support, and I hope you continue to join us in the ride to success. In this hearing, we are going to cover the D23 panel last Friday. Weird, the Al Yankovic story, positive reviews. The Thor Love and Thunder digital release. Bob Chapek getting booed in D23. Yikes. And finally, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II and its impact on the film industry. Enjoy. The D23 Expo happened on the 10th of September 2022, and in short, many people, including myself, believed it was anticlimactic. On the first day, I was facepalming every frickin' time Disney announced their live-action remake projects. Mufasa, a Lion King prequel, a live-action Snow White project, the live-action Little Mermaid. Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I am shivering in cringe just letting that announcement roll off my tongue. And while we didn't get any movie announcements from Lucasfilms in regards to Star Wars movies, we have some fresh coverage to talk about from the D23 panel in regards to Marvel Studios. Yay! Now, before I move on with this segment, just remember that we are a cinema podcast, which means we only talk about movie-related topics. I will say, though, that we got some awesome bits of footage from the MCU and Star Wars TV shows, Andor, The Mandalorian Season 3, that we'll unfortunately not be covering on the Cinema Courtroom. Now sit back and enjoy as I begin with Ant-Man Quantumania. Footage has been shown for Ant-Man 3 Quantumania, and according to multiple reports of eyewitnesses from the panel, Kang makes his first debut in an MCU movie. Fans got to behold him in Loki. But the first movie that we are going to see his presence in is Ant-Man Quantumania. In the footage that we saw of him, he tries to enlist Scott Lang's assistance. He refuses, and as a result of that alliance getting rejected, Kang utilizes telekinesis powers. And it's truly fascinating that we are getting a proper head start on the next Thanos level threat in Phase 5. And especially in Ant-Man Quantumania, we actually get to explore more of the quantum realm. Possibly all of it, considering they have 2 movies of Ant-Man in the can, and a third movie could very well just be all about the quantum realm and its further use in the MCU. Obviously, we're going to see Kang in his full prime in Avengers Kang Dynasty. I definitely cannot wait for that in a few years' time. For Fantastic Four, no pun intended, for Fantastic Four, the only news that we got was that Matt Shankman is set to direct Fantastic Four, and he also directed the Disney Plus series WandaVision. Interesting stuff. For the next set of news, I am just going to say a short disclaimer, and if it doesn't apply to you, then that's nothing to worry about, but there is a certain casting for a certain character that might upset certain groups of minorities. If I tell you who the person is, and you don't see where someone might get offended by them, then that's fair game. I don't expect you to, do a heavy load of research. Just be uninformed. I'm saying that sarcastically. But I know that there might be some potential listeners who won't appreciate me disclosing this news, or even commenting on it on a way that I'll be commenting. And I get that. However, I did say I was going to cover the latest news for the movies. Disclaimer out of the way, let's jump straight to Captain America New World Order, coming out in 2024. Let's start with the non-controversial news first. I almost contemplated doing that, but I want to talk about the fun stuff, because, the main villain for Captain America 4 has been revealed to be the same villain from The Incredible Hulk. Apparently, it's going to be the leader. We will also be getting Isaiah Bradley, played by Carl Lumbly. Again, it turns out that he is confirmed to be in Captain America New World Order. And I'll tell you what, he displayed some immense talent in the Falcon and Winter Soldier series. That being said, I'm very excited to see him on board for another Captain America related project. Taurus, the guy who is meant to be the new Falcon, again revealed in the Falcon and Winter Soldier, is set to return for Captain America New Order. Anthony Mackie as the new Captain America, Sam Wilson, is obviously going to return. No question about that. Now, let's get to what my controversial disclaimer was about. Shira Haas, I don't know if I pronounced her name correctly, is an actress who's going to play, again, disclaimer, Sabra. Now, you might be wondering why I would put a disclaimer about this specific piece of information. Well, that's because Sabra is a character who's an Israeli superhero. And in case you don't know why that may upset some people, again, you can do your research. Google is free if you don't know. Well, for starters, it's not the fact that she happens to be Israeli, whose threat is a 8-year-old Palestinian boy. But whatever. And this character is played by an Israeli actress, which is all fine and good. Everyone, and I mean everyone, deserves an equal shot at Hollywood. But anyway, it's just that if you look at Sabra's fictional biography, as if the name isn't bad enough, she serves with the Mossad, which is the Israeli Secret Service, which apparently is existent in fictional Marvel lore, as well as real life. And I kid you not, Sabra battles the Hulk in the comics because she mistakes him to be an Arab terrorist operating in Israel. I don't know why and how she's going to be in Captain America New World Order while being portrayed in this way. And I'm honestly very curious on how significant that she's going to be to the plot, because there are other actors and actresses that haven't been announced, and that's because chances are they're only going to play minor roles. But to have your role announced in the movie ahead of time is a clear indication that it's going to be fundamental to the Captain America New World Order screenplay. But we do know that, in D23, that was who was confirmed in the casting list. Let's just say that I feel a bit iffy about this character. But I mean, then again, that's just me. I'm still going to watch the movie. It's just that the Sabra character has a questionable backstory, which is being portrayed in a positive light in the comics, and straight up supports and perpetrates dodgy ideologies that dehumanize specific minority groups. All of that controversial crap aside, we got Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts coming up next. Boy, do I got a lot of news to share about that. Yelena is confirmed. John Walker is also confirmed. We have frickin' David Harbour back as the Red Guardian. Let's go! We have Ghost, who played somewhat of a villain in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And of course we got Val, a mysterious lady who runs a secret organization, which is probably the Thunderbolts. Bucky is back. Look who's back. Back again. And Kevin Feige described Bucky's reappearance to be, and I quote, the quietest person in the Thunderbolts group. I guess there's going to be a lot of character evolution for Bucky. For the Marvels, we imagine that most of this information has already been discussed at length. The first footage for it was released in D23. We see Nick Fury talking to Captain Monica Rambeau as she's wearing an astronaut suit in space. She touches a space thing and swaps spots with Kamala Khan. Rambeau tells the Khans, our light-based powers are entangled. It seems like the movie will also have a light-hearted comedic tone. That's all I have to share with you today from the D23 panel. I know, this coverage is late, but I just wanted to take some time to break it down and react to it as fast as I can, hence my pacing voice. What do you guys think about these fascinating new tidbits from Marvel Studios? How do you feel that no Star Wars movie was confirmed? What a bummer. Or that there was no Fantastic Four casting. I'm gonna rage. I feel a bit bummed out, as if you couldn't tell. Whatever. You guys jot it down in the comment section below about what you think about D23. The first reactions to Roku's upcoming movie, Weird, the Al Yankovic story, has been nothing short of positive. The movie debuts on November 4th, 2022, which cannot come soon enough. Not only because I appreciate Al Yankovic as an artist, but also because it is a biopicture that's actually a parody of other cliche biopictures. Judging from that first trailer, I've rewatched it like 4 to 5 times, especially in that scene which showcases Weird Al coming up with the idea of my Bologna. You should know by now that I'm absolutely hyped for this project, and I mean hyped. The question now is, what have other people who have had the chance to see this movie in the Toronto Film Festival have to say about Weird Al Yankovic story? Collider described this movie as a true love for Yankovic's work and career, and a true appreciation for this comedic legend. I agree. The man who knows how to utilize comedy in his, music tracks is being portrayed respectfully well in Weird Al, the Al Yankovic story, based on the limited footage that we saw of the movie. Deadline has also mentioned that the movie is fun compared to what most bleak and joyless biopics look. The people who criticize biopics for being bleak and dark, chances are, and I'm going to be blunt here, they don't get it, that it's supposed to be dark. Bohemian Rhapsody is a fun movie at times, but it's also dark because it illustrated Freddie Mercury's decline in health and his fallout with Mary, his ex-fiancée. Just because the biopicture doesn't shy away from these disconcerting elements doesn't subtract away the merits that make it good. I just want to finish off the segment with one last review by The Wrap, which appears to be mixed. Ooh la la. Does it have moments of hilarity? Sure does. Does it run out of steam at times? Hell yes. Wow, what an affirmative hell yes. But continuing on. Is Apple a workman-like director who mostly stays out of the way and lets his cast deliver after the lapse? Yup. Though he does try to get fancy a few times with mixed results. Now, that's an interesting review right there, and it's clearly not biased, because just by reading that, we're not set up with potential disappointment that we might get by watching Weird Al Yankovic story. If anything, the fact that The Wrap took care to mention that the cast of this movie delivered the laughs is so promising, especially with Daniel Radcliffe on board to play Al Yankovic in the movie. The question now is, what do you guys think about the positive ratings for Weird the Al Yankovic story? I might actually review this film when it comes out. We'll just have to see. But guys, are you looking forward to Weird the Al Yankovic story like I definitely am? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thor Love and Thunder is nothing short of a divisive movie among critics. People who like funny Thor, people who prefer Thor to be dark and grim, can be seen anywhere in pop culture forums. But I will say that there are people who haven't even had the chance to view this movie in the cinema. Lucky for them if they haven't been able to watch Thor Love and Thunder in their local theaters. Now, Thor Love and Thunder is on digital and streaming on Disney Plus as a part of its Disney Plus debut package. I would recommend you to watch this movie, and the Cinema Courtroom would love to know your thoughts about it in the comment section below. Also, be sure to check out Ranking Every MCU podcast episode on my podcast feed and the Cinema Courtroom YouTube channel, where you'll be able to find out where Thor Love and Thunder is on my top 29 MCU movie list. If you're into that, then be sure to catch that episode after you finish listening to this. In this post-sentencing hearing, I covered the D23 panel and what it had entailed, but there was something very revealing about other people's impressions of the CEO of Disney, Bob Chapek. Ever since he stepped in as CEO, people have had somewhat of a diversity of impressions when it came to Bob Chapek. I want to quickly talk about how Bob Chapek got booed in D23 on the first frickin' day. Man, I don't even know how seriously I'm gonna be taking this, because it happened out of nowhere. Bob Chapek was walking on the stage, and then all of a sudden, everyone abruptly booed at him. I don't know what other word to use when it comes to this news. Before I get started, going further into this topic, I'm going to play the clip right here. Take a listen.
Well, thank you so much. And let's give another big round of applause to the Disney on Broadway cast of Lion King, Aladdin, and Frozen.
Now that you've just heard the clip, I'm just going to give you somewhat of a debrief in case you don't know who Bob Chapek is. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't know who Bob Chapek was, because it's first instinct to automatically believe that Mickey Mouse is a real mouse who manages all of the corporate affairs of Disney. Anyways, Bob Chapek is, as I've already mentioned, the CEO of Disney. Bob Chapek has apparently been the subject of a lot of corporate turmoil and drama over at the House of Mouse, an HBO series and a prequel to the Song of Disney and Backlash Fire, The House of Mouse, a parody of The House of Dragon. All of the pent-up anger, angry tweets, angry boycotts have culminated to what had occurred in D23. Everyone, well, almost everyone, booed at him. But let's be real. I haven't seen a single person in the video who hadn't booed him. Bob Chapek isn't exactly known for his popular decision-making. When Scarlett Johansson, who plays the Black Widow character in MCU, filed a lawsuit against Disney over contract disputes, Bob Chapek's handling of Scarlett Johansson's lawsuit had been described as an utter failure. Bob Chapek himself had been responsible for the decision to put Black Widow on Disney Plus streaming and granted a theatrical release on the very same day. As for me personally, I don't think it was a bad move because you have to take into account we lived and are still living in unprecedented times plaguing the cinema industry. We are, as of this recording, still living in a pandemic. That being said, as COVID-19 had been the most rampant, people were either restricted or reluctant to go to a movie theater. What else was Disney supposed to do? Flush movie down the toilet? Bob Chapek, as the head and top CEO, was most certainly not going to be content with having small market share. And that's because most of their customer base, according to credible statistics, okay, I'm not just pulling it out of my ass, viewed television and movies on streaming platforms. So, I mean, Bob Chapek had to make the tough call in leaving Black Widow on the Disney Plus streaming service, where it's guaranteed to get clicks from the people sitting on their couches in their homes. But then again, here is where I'm not that much of a fan of Bob Chapek. We just learned a few days after the release of the new Thor movie that Bob Chapek was the mastermind behind the runtime mandate for Thor, no pun intended, Love and Thunder theatrical release in an effort to increase the amount of showtime. Now come on, that's a scumbag move. Don't tell me otherwise. It kind of limited the content that we've been viewing, and it gave us a somewhat of a misleading impression of Taika Waititi's vision of Thor Love and Thunder had it been a bit longer. I would definitely say that Thor Love and Thunder suffered because of that move, and as it should go without saying, the principle here is as follows. Unsuccessful movies upset people, including the wide fan base. An extra few minutes might have gone a long way for Thor Love and Thunder. So I mean, yeah, obviously there would have to be a fair amount of people from the MCU fan base who are in opposition to this runtime mandate that Bob Chapek has imposed, because it might have hindered the quality and pacing of the film. It should be of no surprise, now that many of them have serious quarrels with Bob Chapek, that they would boo him on stage. And these quarrels were definitely explicit on that stage in D23 when Bob Chapek got booed when he approached it. As for what I think about the booing incident myself, I think that it is nothing more than an immature attempt to be heard in a way distasteful. Now, I'm not entirely against it, nor will I criticize people for expressing themselves in a way that they see fit, as long as they don't throw pigeons, dead pigeons, at Mr. Bob Chapek. Then it's okay by me if you want to boo him. Go right ahead. And that's because throwing dead pigeons is reserved for me, really, and me alone. So if anyone takes the liberty to toss aside a dead pigeon, then I will absolutely rage. I will go apeshit. In all seriousness, you might not want to hear this from me, but guys, I really don't care about Bob Chapek being booed, nor do I make it my life mission to care. The reason that I'm not even talking about this to begin with is because there is substantial history and context that illustrate the bigger picture of why Bob Chapek is being despised, which makes that in itself newsworthy to share. And it could have some real repercussions with the leadership hierarchy over at Disney. What do you guys think about this news? Do you think Bob Chapek, despite his poor track record of making decisions, which is hated by the vast majority, do you think he deserved having boos expressed to him on stage? Do you think it was just flat out disrespectful? Do you endorse Bob Chapek in general? Let me know in the comment section below what you think about Mr. Bob Chapek. Most subject matters don't always have conclusive findings, and in some cases, conclusive findings of morality and politics. Different people have a variety of different views when it comes to many significant matters, and especially with Queen Elizabeth. Now, at first, while I was organizing my show notes and trying to contemplate about what to say in regards to Elizabeth's death, I thought to myself, maybe it's best to not force it in as a segment on the show, because my mind was blank. And when you're running a weekly show now, you have no time to just wait for something to hit you creatively, versus matter of urgency. Because the passing of Queen Elizabeth II goes beyond movies. It's a political, somewhat grim, and historical topic more than anything. And it's hard to find the relevance pertaining to movies about the subject at first glance. So I just let it go until another thought came to mind. What if we were to take a second glance at the subject matter? How has Queen Elizabeth been portrayed in film, and how did she herself perceive movies? Movies are an art form which existed since the 19th century. Queen Elizabeth has been alive for a segment of 96 years amidst the existence of movies. Someone who was born when the first movie was released is old enough to be her grandparent. Be it as it may, the Queen may appear to be old, but she isn't really. Movies happened a century before her. Let that sink in. The sentiment that the Queen was never exposed to a single movie is what I believe to be a misguided assertion in and of itself, and that's why I want to talk about it. Even though we've never heard directly from Queen Elizabeth what her favorite movie was, we've heard of it from a quote-quote royal source, someone who's getting first-hand information from the royal family, and who would once in a while drop us a nugget of how the Queen Elizabeth sees her entertainment. Before I talk about this further, here's something you should be aware of about the subject matter of Queen Elizabeth. What we all must know. Whether or not we like her, don't care about her, hate her, not a big fan of her, neutral, whatever. That's besides the point. The core thing that unites us in the cinema industry is, well, you guessed it, movies. You and I might not have a stake in the same views about Queen Elizabeth, but perhaps we can endorse that the Star Wars sequels suck. Likewise, and regardless of what your perceptions are about the Queen of England, we might both agree that the Star Wars sequels are just awesome. That's just an example of how movies unite us as a fandom. That being said, the passing of Queen Elizabeth II is very influential, and that in itself warrants the subject matter as a segment here on the Cinema Courtroom show, where we cover everything movie and pop culture related, including what influences it. Queen Elizabeth's death, for sure, might have just caused a ruckus in the tides of movie marketing. The second trailer for Black Adam was distributed on social media a day after Queen Elizabeth had died. And the reason why not many people converse about Black Adam is because it is overshadowed by the news of Queen Elizabeth's passing. Just to give you a bit of context and insight, Queen Elizabeth II passed away last Thursday, September 8th. As I am recording this podcast, this is literally being recorded a day after she had died, and it's still trending on the news and everything. I might be stating the obvious here, but this is something short of a historical week. Nothing short of a historical week. The Queen has actually died. 96 years she lasted, and that has come to what plenty of British people acknowledge as a bittersweet end. Queen Elizabeth is no stranger to the film industry in general. Again, that's my opinion here. Netflix's original series on their platform, The Crown, is literally a dramatized biopicture of Queen Elizabeth. I shouldn't be saying this because I don't typically cover television news, but the new season for The Crown has halted screening out of respect for Queen Elizabeth II. The King's Speech, which was released in 2010, is about King George consolidating his worth to lead Britain through the Second World War. That's obviously related to Queen Elizabeth, because it's her father. In other movies and TV shows, Queen Elizabeth is portrayed to align with how the public is supposed to perceive her. Elegant, formal, apolitical, civil, mostly quiet. Sometimes she is portrayed with a bit of comedy and cheekiness, but she always gets the last word. And then there are people who think that adds to the comedy aspects of her scene as well. We don't know what the Queen watches in her spare time, definitely. But we do know, or might know, in case, one of the sources could be making this up, what her favorite movie is. It's apparently Flash Gordon, a cult classic space opera, which was released in theaters in 1980. The funny thing is that some of the original soundtrack was composed by the band Queen itself. That's interesting. So anyway, the more I begin to ponder about the death of the Queen and about the subject of movies, I think that I can conclude without a shred of doubt that Queen Elizabeth is more connected to the film industry in terms of her portrayal and what her favorite movie is than many of us might think. And even her death is connected to the cinema industry, because the news of her death distracted a film's potential eyeballs and the people pre-booking tickets from their marketing and trailers. Instead of clicking on marketing for new movies and new trailers, people spent more than a day absorbing the significant news. Not to mention that movie productions in the UK might very well be halted, and anyone who's employed in the film industry won't be working for a certain time quota until the days of mourning passes. And as we should know, rescheduling another week of shooting requires intense capital added costs. So we can see a impact on the economy there. Now, if despite hearing all of these points, you still don't think that her death affects the film industry, or you don't think the Queen is a movie person at all, let me know why you think that in the comment section below, or send a message to the Cinema Courtroom inbox on Twitter at the Cinema Courtroom, or on Instagram at Cinema Court Blog. Links are provided in description. Another thing, and I didn't want to mention it in the opening of this segment of today's show, but I think it's opportune for me to say it here. I will be removing any comments that aren't apolitical or neutral to the passing of Queen Elizabeth. My forums are strictly resolved around movies, not world politics, or if the Queen is a bad person or not. You didn't hear any discourse on the show about whether the Queen is X or Y. In that same respect, all I ask in return is that it shouldn't be seen in my comment section. If you already know that, then good. Other than that, reminder, I would be very intrigued to read your thoughts about the passing of Queen Elizabeth II and its extent of correlation to the cinema industry. At last, we have now reached the end of this podcast episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Cinema Courtroom show, where we critiqued movies. I had a lot of fun doing this podcast, so why not subscribe if you had fun listening to episode 9 of the Cinema Courtroom as well. And I do hope to see you guys again in the next episode, where we're going to talk about, yet again, another movie. As for what movie it's going to be, find out when the next and 10th episode of the Cinema Courtroom show launches this coming Friday on the YouTube and Spotify platform. Whoop whoop! We're finally making it to the Big 10, guys. Can I get another amen? I'm kidding. Thank you once again for listening till the end. I am your galactic judge, Mako Mark, and I hope you have a spectacular, spectacular day.
Hello there.
Court is now dismissed.